was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, because he was a whistleblower. He wasn't just any whistleblower, he was a distinguished honor graduate, the Fort Bliss whistleblower. I mean, taking down the pillars of major cartel operations within our agencies, within our military. Um, the most severe, I think very severe election tampering. And they took him downstairs to the basement room, into a soundproof room, to take his life. And they stole his body. Don't forget about Vanessa Guillen. Her body had just been found. And it was the most sophisticated burial that EquuSearch had ever found. Well, ever seen, because they were very close to finding it, but they were then called away by the CID. And anyway, that's a long story, but Vanessa Guillen's remains had just been found in a very sophisticated grave. She had been dismembered. She had been burnt. They dug a foxhole. They put her body in it. They put lime over it. They put concrete over it. They put dirt over it, leaves. They thought no way would anyone ever find her remains. But God had a different plan. And her remains were found. And this was announced the very beginning of July, I believe almost July 4th, in 2020. Richard's life was taken. His body was stolen and trafficked across the border, international border, for disposal. Vanessa Guillen and Richard Halliday, our son, were under the same command. Even though it's Fort Hood and Fort Bliss, it's the same command, FORSCOM. And Richard was under the Fort Bliss commander, which was, of course, 1AD. And when you say he's under that, even though he was 32nd Air Defense, you know, my dad used to always call it 32nd ADCOM, but, you know, they've changed it up a little bit. Even though Richard's 32nd Air Defense is was under General Garrett, a 4-star general, FORSCOM, he was still under the legal jurisdiction of Fort Bliss Command, the JAG, the ones that severely committed treason. This is so treasonous. And I've said this for a long time, and the evidence keeps piling up that declares this clearly as a treasonous military operation against the people of the United States, because it was meant to secure the White House for Beto O'Rourke. That's what That's what they were trying to do. It didn't work, thank God. But that's what they were trying to do. Because this is Beto O'Rourke's hand is all over this, and the military, elements in our military, this was their rogue operation. The Walmart mass shooting was a military rogue operation to attack President Trump, to put out a false narrative that Beto O'Rourke and then Veronica Escobar could ignite, could falsely expand it into the media because they're in alliance with the El Paso cartel, who have power over the media. El Paso cartel is El Paso Community Foundation. El Paso Community Foundation used to own KTSM. Okay. They have control over El Paso Matters and a lot of power over Texas Tribune, many different media. And so this was so dangerous because of their control over media, it emboldened them to do this false flag, to, because they were profiting from trafficking, profiting from giving protection to the traffickers. I think that's the better way of saying it. Even though, this has a lot to do with the fuel and bonds and, just fraud. They're fraudsters in a terroristic organization. And of course, connected to the whole Jeffrey Epstein pipeline. But selling their protection to the likes of El Chapo, right? The likes of El Chapo, the El Chapo fentanyl governor, Maru Campos, making these treasonous treaties to give access across the border and access to intelligence, so that they could traffic with impunity. And of course, then it gets very ugly with the organ harvesting, trafficking, the baby harvesting, trafficking. It gets very, very, very evil. And Richard was saying, no way, I'm not going to turn a blind eye to this. It's so evil. It's so destructive. It's so, it's just what I used to tell, is spiraling down into the depths of hell, where there's crying out, gnashing of teeth because there's no hope. That's where they wanted to take us. And Richard wouldn't let him do that, and they killed him for it. And when we got there, and I mean, the whole case, when you look at it, the way they responded is evidence in itself that the military was involved in this. elements of the military. You know, I have to say Mormon faction and elements of the military. Yeah. So, what is the evidence that we have that absolutely confirms that this was a treasonous rogue military operation? Well, in on August 3rd, which happens to be the prime suspect's birthday, okay? It's Dallas Hart's birthday. August 3rd is Dallas Hart's birthday, which is weird, you know. And of course, he was Richard's platoon leader and also in alliance with Danae Katzen, whose husband was also in 143, deployed with 143. So, Jonathan Caleb Ambrose. And all those names have a lot of meaning for people that are in the borderland because they know who's who. They know Ariano. They know the Corones. They know who purchases. They know Ambrose. They know the Hearts. And so, of course, you know, we haven't lived in the borderland for a long time. I was born at White Sands Missile Range. I went to school in El Paso. So I had an idea. Rob's 3 siblings were born at William Beaumont. You know, we have a lot of history there in our families. We had an idea, but you know, we hadn't been there for years, and so the names, you know, the Quayar name, many different names in this. You know, we weren't familiar with all the connections. So now we're at 6 years and we've learned a lot. And of course, there's the Mormon faction connection that is the common denominator because they're dual citizens. They are Americans that crossed over to Mexico to settle in Chihuahua, Mexico, because they're polygamists. And the Mormon faction has a huge element in it that are, well, I'll just say the Mormon faction are absolutely in alliance with the cartel, our cartel. And they could cross the border easily. And they could establish their connections in the United States in El Paso, in Arizona also, Fort Huachuca too. So all along the border, they could establish, they became very important to the cartels because they were dual citizens. And they were also in the FBI and the CIA and in the court system and in the agencies, and had access to intelligence, to cases. They have it. It's still going on. And so they became very important, and they could sell what they knew to the cartels. They could sell it. So an alliance over all these years, because they've been there for over 100 years. They absolutely formed an alliance and intermarried and everything. So you cannot separate the border cartels from the Mormon faction, Chihuahuan. And, you have famous ones like the Romneys, Mitt Romney is from there. That's where his father's from. His father was born, I believe, either in Nova Casa Grandes or Colonial Juarez. You can look that up. There's a big temple they built there. Um, so it really clarifies, the money and the power and the access to all the top secret information, the intel. And that gave them a lot of power. It gives them a lot of power. They're still in power. And then to have the media, right? All the media. So you cannot separate it. And of course, I know from being a spouse, a military spouse, that there is a huge following in the Mormon factions in the military. So you have a lot of military, and then of course, they congregate there at the border because that's where they want them. That's where they want them. And so to have Richard's chain of command all be compromised, it's not a wonder because um, they were placed there for that purpose. And you can even see like Sergeant Major Jones, when you read the articles, oh, this is home. I'm back home. I'm back home. This is my stomping ground. Um, so what is the big evidence, right? What's the big evidence that we have? I mean, we have so much evidence. We have a robust mountain of evidence, right? Quote unquote, quote unquote. Um, so what we have found out, what we've been working on, of course, we knew that the Walmart mass shooting and Richard's case, murder cover-up case, were intertwined, very intertwined. Same people involved in both. And then, the leads to all of that, red flags went up and spidey senses went out, was because of the questions that were asked of us. What people wanted to know. What did these operatives want to know from us? Because, we were surrounded by them. And, it wasn't questions about finding Richard or, you know, entertaining the idea that he was murdered. They never wanted to do that, never, never, never. And because they never wanted to, it was the questioning that was such evidence to us. And we recorded, and to go through all of that and to listen to the questions that they asked us. What did they want to know, or what were they telling us? They never wanted to entertain the obvious, right? And where the evidence was going, what the evidence showed. The evidence showed clearly, and we turned it in, that Richard was a whistleblower. They never wanted to admit to that. It was like, okay, why not? You're investigators, you're CID, you're FBI, you're DEA, you're DHS, you're, CBP, you're, you are the marshals, you are the sheriffs, you're all the, why don't you ask the right questions? Why don't you investigate the leads? You wanted the leads, you got the leads. Why didn't you investigate the leads? So that was clearly all of that. And I'm trying to be pretty concise here to save time, but It absolutely confirmed to us that Richard's case and his whistleblowing was absolutely intertwined with the Walmart mass shooting. And as we investigated not only our son's case, but the Walmart mass shooting, because they're the same case, or one case, or so intertwined, we realized that the Walmart mass shooting was an operation. And of course, a cartel operation. And that the evidence, witness statements, everything, absolutely confirmed that it was an orchestrated operation. You can call it a false flag. It was bloody. It was bloody. So I hate to say, oh, it's a orchestrated, and people to think that it wasn't an actual shooting, and that people actually died, right? We have the pictures, we have the very severe executed pictures, the gore, the vile, the vulgar, the horrific scenes, right? Um, but they didn't match up at all to the narratives. N- Not at all. Not at all. And we kept investigating, and everything came back confirmed, orchestrated and staged crime scene, with like Jaime Esparza being a major player in um, this operation with the military, with Sam Madrano, the most corrupt. I mean, these are very corrupt people. The judge in the state case, and David Guadarrama in the federal case. Absolutely so filthy corrupt. And of course, Joe Spencer, Patrick Crusius's lawyer, Patrick Crusius's family, that nobody ever showed up. I mean, the more we found out about him, the more we knew that they were involved in all of this. And of course, you've got Michael Mayella, but we knew something was really stinky, because where was his family? And the more we learned through the prosecutor's office, because people died, so many people died, that this case seemed to be killing people even after the incident. It didn't seem to kill people. It did kill people. And so, remember Loretta Lynn Hewitt? That was a very big deal. She was a lead prosecutor in the case, and she resigned. I think she saved her own life, because you know her notebooks were tampered with or taken from her, and she, on the stand, talked about Patrick Crusius being severely autistic, and um, it just couldn't be. The whole narrative couldn't be. So everything confirmed. It didn't point at, it didn't indicate, it absolutely confirmed that it was orchestrated, a bloody orchestration, and also a staged crime scene, and a staged state proceedings, and staged federal proceedings. Now, that's huge to say, and people would, even we would say, how could that be? It happened. 100%. They manipulated. You have Sam Medrano's wife manipulating the wheel for what justices would see what cases, right? They absolutely have the infrastructure to do this. And it's corrupt through and through, compromised through and through. And that includes our military, and it includes the FBI. And so, who were the lead agents in the Walmart mass shooting from the FBI office? Well, that was Todd Petkus, but the lead was David Scott Frost. You know, why did they live on Fort Bliss? Well, why did Frost live on Fort Bliss? He's FBI. He's lead FBI agent on the deadliest, I think it's the deadliest Texas mass shooting ever in history. They give it to a soldier. He's a soldier. He's been a soldier for a long time. And the evidence is there that he's been a soldier for a long time. Come to find out, he's not, well, he's accused of not being a very nice person at all. Not a nice husband at all. He's been accused of not being a nice husband at all. Right during that time. And so a show cause was filed. A show cause was filed, and just keep with me for a little bit because I have notes, just so much, and I want to get it right, but I'm going to read this because this is so important. So David Scott Frost is double-hatted, dual assigned, right? In the military and in the FBI. That is so illegal because then you can't have two chain of commands that you are having to obey. Okay, that's why that's so illegal. You're either an FBI agent or you're a soldier. Okay, a U.S. Army soldier, a U.S. Army First AD soldier. And he was both simultaneously. What? But yep, he was. Because there's been, remember I talked about this a few months ago, I think. I don't know. I have to look at the exact date. Whew, things have been going so fast. So I'm going to say a few months ago. We said that he and Todd Petkus were reprimanded. They were reprimanded. How did we know that? Because we have the proof that that they were reprimanded, that an official complaint went out against them as FBI agents in the Walmart mass shooting investigation. And they were reprimanded. Okay? So that shows, that's evidence, confirmation that they were the lead agents in the Walmart investigation, Walmart mass shooting investigation. Okay, Omar Chavez is back. How dare you say that the Walmart shooting was orchestrated? Well, listen, and then you decide for yourself, Omar. Because I'm not saying it was orchestrated. The evidence says it was orchestrated, and that it was orchestrated by elements in our military, in alliance with cartel and a political faction of Beto O'Rourke in El Paso with the El Paso cartel. The El Paso cartel was backing up Beto O'Rourke. And the evidence declares that the Walmart mass shooting was orchestrated. So I dare not say it. The evidence says it. The evidence doesn't care if they hurt your feelings or not, because the evidence is the truth. And whether I like it or not, and I don't like it, I don't like it that we have treasonous cartel thugs that murdered my son, that would murder people in cold blood so that they could get the White House. At least try to, not even guaranteed to get the White House, because they didn't get the White House. But to try to get the White House, we're going to murder people. You think I like that? But that's what happened. And they attacked President Trump because President Trump was, not because President Trump was President Trump, it was because President Trump was their competition, was their rival. And of course, they hate him because he is a formidable rival and has the hearts of the American people. Because even with all of their election tampering, where is he right now? In the White House. In the White House. And that's not me putting him in there or me imagining him in there. No, he is there. Reality. Whether people like it or not. So listen to the evidence, and then you will have to dare say that the Walmart mass shooting was orchestrated, or you will have to live in a delusion. Because a show cause is a show cause, and you have David Scott Frost, the lead investigator, being in the military, not in any place in the military, but right there with Sean Bernabe, right there with Sean Bernabe in the headquarters of 1AD. And I'm just wondering if he ever went to visit the guard mount and tell the MPs a big fat lie smearing our son, because that happened. And I'm just wondering if it was Tavita Nusa. And, you know, last night I talked about Cody Carter, the DPS, and, you know, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Uh, but I'm very fit. I'm very fit, and I'm going to read this. That in this case, show cause, protective order against him. Not saying, oh, he has to come to court and we have to discuss this. No, you must come, and I'm going to read it. The show cause was docketed number 2021 DCM 6660. Gosh, that just gives me the creeps. That just gives me the creeps. So 2021 DCM 6660. This how evil this is. And I couldn't even make that up if I wanted to. Okay, was issued to David Scott Frost at his residence, Fort Bliss, or his, and I don't want to give his address, I don't want to dox him, or his place of employment, the U.S. Army HHB Division, well, DIVARTY 1AD, that's first 1AD headquarters at and it gives the address on Medic Avenue. The exact same command where he served as an active duty Army staff officer under Major General Sean Bernabe. This all happened under Sean Bernabe, while being the lead investigator, the lead FBI investigator for the 2019 El Paso Walmart mass shooting. The applicant, his wife, filed for a protective order against Frost for alleging family violence, with the hearing scheduled before Judge Victor Salas on November 30th, 2021, to be conducted virtually via Zoom, because, of course, the whole COVID stuff. And the notice explicitly warned Frost. Okay? The notice warned Frost that if he failed to appear, a default judgment could be issued requiring him to surrender all firearms, ammunition, licenses to carry, possession, license to carry in his possession within 48 hours. That he would have to give all of that up within 48 hours. This means that the same David Scott Frost, who was tasked with investigating the deadliest mass shooting in Texas history, a shooting that new evidence confirms was a military rogue operation tied to cartel trafficking on the borderland and at Fort Bliss, was simultaneously under a court order. That's a third hat now. For family violence allegations that could have stripped him from his firearms, his security clearance, and his ability to serve as an FBI agent or Army officer. The timing, November 2021, is during huge high point. Well, every day has been a high point, but it's huge because they were trying to put Richard into cold case. And our family was actively exposing cartel linked trafficking operations at Fort Bliss. And other things were happening at the time in our timeline that, if you've been watching, you understand, because of our key whistleblower in our case, what was happening in the DA's office. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this was such an operation, an orchestrated operation, and it was treasonous, and it was, as the days went by, it got worse and worse and worse, y'all. Major General Bernabe knew this, and the thing is that his wife's, her attorney, who she went to, was Christina Sanchez, the county attorney. The county attorney absolutely knew and had a duty to go to Judge Guadarrama, go to San Medrano, and say, wait a minute here. We've got the lead FBI investigator in the military being accused of family violence that's so severe that the judge wants to take away his weapons and clearance and license if he doesn't show up for the court. I think Omar owes us an apology. Omar, you owe us an apology. Because we've been right all along. It's hell to be right. Because we've known, because of Dallas Hart, because of his connections with Tavita Nusa and the CID, with Solomona Nusa in mortuary operations, being an officer there, with all of the shenanigans and the cartel activity, total cartel activity in the DPS, our house being searched without a warrant, with the FBI leaking our son's identity to the cartel, that's Colonel Wetton, with Michael Mayella, the brother-in-law of the alleged shooter in the Walmart case, working in the FBI even today. Also at the time working with Jaime Esparza in the DA's office. Also at the time being employed with Walmart cybersecurity. And his father being the federal courthouse manager for, that includes David Guadarrama and Patrick Crucius's case, and having the El Paso ISD police targeting our son, having members that are attached. And remember, I mean, I can go on with all of these connections that show the targeting of Richard that are part of the Walmart mass shooting orchestration and in the whole investigation and in the case and in the fraud. But you have now the lead FBI agent working directly under Sean Bernabe, with his wife's attorney, the county attorney, Christina Sanchez, knowing all of this. And I have to dare say it, what the evidence says, this was a treasonous, orchestrated, military rogue operation to attack President Trump as a political stunt, a bloody political stunt, to form a narrative so that their media that they own or are in alliance with, because don't forget El Diario with Oswaldo Rodriguez Barunda is Juarez cartel. That's been confirmed. So that the media can put out a false narrative over and over again, fake news, about the opponent of Beto O'Rourke, who happens to be President Trump. Beto O'Rourke is so, gosh, is he evil. And he's in alliance with, well, his family's ranch is right there beside Jeffrey Epstein's ranch. And of course, his father-in-law, who supported him with a lot of money, is from Chicago and is in alliance then with Obama and Oprah. And we know that because their meeting point, Santa Fe, New Mexico, right there by their ranches and their homes, because, Oprah has a home there. No, it's, I think for everyone living a cover up, being paid to do a cover up, now is not the time to accept that kind of job. Now is not the time. For example, our breaking news today, this is why we're coming on so late, because we had so much breaking news, because Jose Luis Arellano Curon from Group of Purchase, because you have to realize that Plenitude Crematorium was a funeral home. And I really need to put up the picture of the front door of Plenitude Crematorium instead of always showing the backside where over the 400 bodies were all rotting and rat infested and no potable water, no air conditioning. It is just black disgust. Absolutely sacrilege. These fraudsters that are so bold and, throw around money and, meet with Samaniego. Remember that Rafael Arellano Curon met with Samaniego in his, what is that cafe, that restaurant, right? He met there with his attorney Pineda. I mean, how disgusting is that? Well, it wasn't his. Okay, so Rafael met with Pineda, the attorney for his brother, Jose Luis, who had been arrested because he was there at the Plenitude Crematorium when the police came and arrested him. Rightfully so. The stench was so bad, they could barely even arrest him because the stench was so bad of all the rotting bodies. I mean, you're not talking about one rotting body. You're not talking about 2 rotting bodies. You're not talking about 10 rotting bodies. You're not talking about 50 rotting bodies. You're not talking about 100 rotting bodies. You're not talking about 250. You're not talking about 400. You're talking about more. It's just these people, they're monsters. And he was in prison, and they organized that Pineda would give Hernandez Morga. It's like mortician or something. Morgo, whatever. 1 million pesos to give to the judge, to bribe the judge to let him go. Well, that judge took it. I mean, oh, how dare I say that the judge took 1 million pesos from the attorney or from the deliverer at his own home, from the attorney of Luis, Jose Luis, Purchase Grupa, Ariano Curon. How dare I? Oh, because it happened. Because it's the truth. It's the evidence. And there should be reverence for the evidence, respect for evidence, for the truth. And so a bribe happened, got caught, and this Ismael Hernandez, what is his name? I wrote it down here. Because it's not really common. I think he is really important, y'all. I don't know. I've got this spidey sense around me about this 1 million pesos deliverer to a judge. Wow. Who would do that? Who would do that? Only someone very connected. Only someone that had a lot to lose. I think he's very important in all of this. So that was breaking news. And then what we've been working on, it just all came through. It just all came through. And you have to, you look at the address of David Frost and you're like, what? And the unit that he's in, and you're like, really? And it's like Sean Bernabe absolutely knew, because it's his job to know who is being, having to go to court for a protective order for family violence on Fort Bliss. Oh, it's only the FBI lead investigator for the Walmart mass shooting. And in the direct command JAG, the legal of Richard Halliday's case investigation that is being totally thwarted and covered up and tampered with and manipulated. And oh, wow. Look, this Walmart mass shooting was an orchestrated, treasonous, military rogue operation by elements in our military on, I don't even want to just leave it at Fort Bliss, because let me tell you what, Michael Garrett was in on it. And that's a 4-star. Because he sent spies to us. And Marine General Kelly in on it. I don't know what they're going to do with this. They can bury this. They can bury it in Facebook or in, whatever. They can call their buddies and, how many pesos do you want to bury the fine Richard Halliday Facebook news that about Frost, about the bribe to Ariano Caron's judge. How many pesos do you want to cover up the attack is confirmed on President Trump? Because it was absolutely Veronica Escobar. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Because the evidence takes away all the doubts. And Omar, you said have respect for the surviving. You need to have respect for the surviving. Because the survivors want to know what happened. And they want justice. Because let me tell you, the surviving have said there were more than one shooter. The surviving have said that they were all dressed in black, that they had a mask on. The surviving? And why not have respect for the dead? Because I've seen the pictures of Maria Eugenia Lagarette. I've seen the pictures of Alexander Hoffman. And that wasn't Patsy that did that to them, because these were professional shots. And then 3 years out, Jose Sanchez, the director for the West, because Texas is so big, right? Texas is so big. So the director for the DPS for that whole Western district comes out 3 years after and say, oh, we don't even have a forensics report. Where is the ballistics? Where is the forensics report? Was Frost in too much trouble? Was Frost in too much trouble? Or was this an orchestrated, political, bloody mess? So I think the truth is what shows respect for those that survived and those that lost their life. I think, Omar, I might just have to delete you. Yeah. So, but there's a lot of cartel that have a lot to lose in all of this. They want to traffic fentanyl. They want to traffic the meth. They want to traffic the cocaine. They want to traffic the children. They want to traffic the weapons and the ammunition and all of the car parts and the equipment, and they made a lot of money off of it. A lot of money. And they have a lot to lose. And so, it's to be expected. A lot of fuel siphoning, right? The siphoning of the fuel. Our son was brutally murdered. And, through all of this, all of these people that have been killed in all of this, we're just not the type of family that doesn't fight for our loved ones when we smell a rat. A really, really big rat. Crocodiles, right? Monsters. So, okay. Thank you so much for coming on so late. And that's just like jaw-dropping news. And I hope I did it justice, because it really is jaw-dropping. And it has a lot of implications, and it needs to get out there. And so the only thing that we ask for you to do is to share that information. Share it. Subscribe, like, share, but share. That's what that makes all the difference. It's so big. It's so huge. So thank you so much. God bless you. And I will be back on tomorrow, God willing.